Hello, this is Read Realm, 9th of the 6th, 2023, 21-23. And today we're going to talk about the Counter Disinformation Unit. And then we're going to play some Division because it's been offline for an update. And I'm excited to jump on, see what's new. I'm not even up to the New York bit yet, but we'll have a look. I've got a good little 41 minute video to listen to while I play as well. So stick around to the end for this. First things first, we're going to be talking about the disinformation. Actually, we're talking about CDU, counterdisinformation.gov.uk. It's a new disinformation agenda, idea. But we're going to go through some of the pages I've already got linked up here. I'm just going to add little bits as we go. So, first things first, what are we looking at here? Let me make this full screen. Here we go. Counter Disinformation Unit upon source information collection, analysis, privacy notice. The purpose of the privacy notice is to explain how the Counter Disinformation Unit collects and processes your personal data when we have not obtained personal data directly from you. It is provided to meet our obligations set by the Article 14 of the UK General Data Protection Regulations, GDPR. Who is responsible for collecting the data? CDU leads to UK government's operational response to disinformation threats online and ensure the government take necessary steps to identify and respond to acute misinformation. You see, there's a lot of misinformation that was spread by well-known establishments like the BBC and ITV throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and we know that there's talks about them releasing another one, or that there's gonna be COVID 2.0 and stuff like this. So maybe what they're doing is they like to try and tell you what they're doing. Well, they do tell you what they're doing. There are conspiracies behind that. Some people say that they have a contract with an intergalactic federation of species outside there in the galaxy, and that as our overlords, they are contracted to tell us what they're doing, which is why in a lot of sci-fi movies, there's a lot of truths in science fiction movies. A lot of people use science fiction movies to try and find out subliminal messages and predictive programming, because that, to some people, and I've thought this myself, is their way of telling us what's going on. Because whoever they've made this contract with, whenever they come around, they can turn around and say, well, we've been telling them. But I don't know if that'll be enough, because it's definitely manipulation. But what is the purpose in which we collect personal data? The purpose of the CDU's work is focused on helping the government understand online disinformation narratives and attempts to artificially manipulate the information's environment. The CDU takes an evidence-based approach to countering harmful disinformation online through aggregated analysis and publicly available information. That means everything you're putting online, they're tracking, and they have a right to. You're putting it online, it is what it is. That's you consenting to anyone using that information. Whilst this data is anonymized, wherever possible, the content we review may incidentally include personal data, for example, usernames, social media handles, contact information, or personal data that may be embedded within material that you or others may have published on those sites. In other words, we're looking at your social media, we're looking at what you're posting. We're essentially giving them the information. We know nothing about them. Everything's secret. Everything's a secret. We don't know who are the people behind this, but we're going to look into some ideas, and they kind of tell us as well. I'm looking for, there's a part about the EU. Okay, any insight to provide all the general and be agitated basis, blah blah blah. If any of the content of the CDU reviews may infringe the moderations, okay, how long is the data held for? Will my data be used decision making on profiling? No, we do not use. Yeah, sure, of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. What that should say is not yet. When we transferred outside of the UK, and if it is, how will it be protected? We will not send personal data beyond the European Economic Area, the European Union. So, this is going to come into play a little bit later on when we go through the real face of the European Union video that we're going to play later. Understanding data protection rights, our contact details, okay. So that's basically the lowdown of what the Counter Disinformation Unit Open Source Information Collection Analysis Privacy Notice is about. 16th of March 2023. So, the Ministry of Truth by Big Brother. This is the Counter website. These are the ones who talk a lot. I've brought them up before. These are the ones who are kind of keeping an eye on the government and exposing the overreach that they're currently doing. Big Brother Watch's investigation reveals that secretive UK government disinformation units have been spying on political dissent and suppressing free speech online. We know that they've been doing this. We've been doing it for years. What it is we've seen it all throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're about to see it pushed to a more aggressive approach. I think this next push will be aggressive because of people like Donald Trump, because of right-wing conservatism, I forget what it's called, popularism. Basically, people are becoming more conservative. People aren't consuming the woke agenda. People are pushing back against the schools that are indoctrinating the kids. People are pushing back against the climate change activists. People are pushing back against the crime that's currently going on. People aren't stupid. People are fully aware of what's been going on. And the reason they're aware is because people have been self-educating themselves online. And that self-education is what these Ministry of Truth operations are going to be targeting. They're going to be targeting information. It's all about, it says here, secretive information warfare machine. So we'll get into this in a sec. Ministry of Truth exposed. Secretive Whitehall units have been monitoring government critics' speech online, including MPs, academics, journalists, human rights campaigners, and the public, under the guise of combating misinformation. Now, one thing you need to look into here is MPs. MPs, academics, journalists. We already know that the academics are pretty much involved with it all anyway, because of the massive subsidies, the massive payments that they've been receiving to basically keep their mouths shut. And these are the people at the top of universities, the people at the top of medical health. These are the snakes. They have no backbone whatsoever. Journalists, they're the exact same. They are probably the worst of the worst. A lot of these probably won't be controlled by money. These ones are controlled by pedophilia, affiliation with cults, groups of that sort of thing, underground parties, that whole night lifestyle. Celebrity night lifestyle, and that's what we're seeing with Philip Schofield. There's more to that than you think. There's more to Jimmy Savile than you think. There's more to a lot of it. It's the currency. What you're essentially looking at is a currency, is a global currency, and we might use pounds. America might use dollars. The elite, who the journalists brush shoulders with, their currency is children, and that's it. And then you got your human rights campaigners. Obviously, these are the ones who are going to be targeted because these are the ones who are trying to protect the kids from these. So these are going to be like target number one. These are the ones who are actually being targeted. Now, these will just be monitored. The MPs, the academics and journalists, they'll be controlled and monitored. Human rights campaigners, Some of them will be controlled, especially when it comes to the LGBTQ. Some of them will be controlled opposition, and they'll be agitators, and they'll be paid money to agitate and get out there and cause problems so that we can react, and that then the government can solve. And the solution always involves less rights for us. And the public's where they're losing control. I think maybe they released the internet too early. Maybe the internet wasn't ready. Either way, we've got it. We know what's going on. People are waking up. Report of Ministry to the secretive government using this spying on the speech revealed the first time that the truth behind the government's 5 anti-fake news units and how their mission of countering disinformation has quickly turned into countering dissent across the UK. Read the full report. Yeah, I clicked on that. That was a pretty big. Key findings: Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, Conservative MP David Davis, and Chris Green, high-profile academics from the University of Oxford, University College of London, and journalists joining Peter Hitchens and Julia Hartley-Brewer, all had comments critical of the government, analysed by anti-disinformation units. Some Peter Hitchens always kind of spoke out quite a lot. Julia Hartley, she does as well. I'm not too fussy on talk radio, but I did go through a phase of listening to them a lot in the car for a while, and I did enjoy it. The universities, I pretty much wipe my hands of the universities. I don't think that there are any of these academics left in universities that are speaking out about this stuff. I think they are gone. They're completely gone. Targeted speech, including public criticism of the government's pandemic response. And then this is what we're going to get into next. Soldiers from the Army's 77th brigade, tasked with non-lethal psychological warfare, collected tweets from British citizens posting about COVID-19 and passed them to central government, despite claiming operations were strictly overseas. We are the target now. We are the enemy of the state. Or should I say the state is the enemy of us. They have completely turncoat. If we can even say that they've turncoated, as we're going to look into in a minute in the long video that I'm going to play. This has been going on for a long time. This is not new. There's an agenda that is afoot. So let's get into the 77th brigade. So this is it. The army, army.mod.uk. Who we are. Information Divisions Brigade. 6th United Kingdom Division. 77th Brigade. Okay. Let's read what they say. Let's see what they have to say. Adapting to warfare in the information age. Warfare is rapidly evolving, and the ability to compete in the information domain is critical. We must develop our capabilities and find novel ways of operating to counter our adversaries. See, they'll create an adversary. They'll pretend that there's an adversary out there that's targeting your mind. Russia. You know, China. And I'm not saying that those countries are definitely not doing the exact same thing. I think that they're all in bed with each other. I think that they're all up to their own little games. And the wider conflict is just World War III. You know, it's the lockdown. It's the major catalyst for bringing in the New World Order. Who are we? The 77th Brigade is a hybrid unit of regulars and reservists with specialist skills to combat new forms of warfare in the information environment for the defence of the UK and its overseas territory. Some of the ways we help: establish partnerships, operating platforms and systems in order to conduct overseas operations, identify, develop and conduct information operations independently or with partners to gain advantage against actual and potential adversaries. All pretty bog standard stuff. Conduct audience analysis to deliver the most effective operations in support of military objectives, development of capabilities to operate, blah blah blah. 77th brigade constrains our hostile state actors and adversaries through information operations and targeting, deployed and at standoff, using intelligence to understand audiences and systems, analyze networks and identify intelligence opportunities. The brigade holds a range of capabilities to delect effects. 77th brigade activities are best employed in concert with other military effects to adhesive integrated action. Pretty bog standard stuff on this first page, but I actually went and had a little look on the next page. Was it this one? Was it? So 5th information operation, highly deployed force element of 77th brigade trained in the delivery of tactical information activities. Mission teams develop and coordinate information operations within the military framework, blah blah blah. So I think it was this one. Highly deployed force element of 77 trained in developing tactical information activities using planned and liaison elements and tactical PSYOP teams. Let me just remember what IOTF stands for again. It was information operation. There it is. Information Operations Task Force. So, well, actually, it's right there. So the 5th Information Operation Task Force conducts partnered operations and delivers tactical PSYOP activities on the general public, not overseas, on the general public. 5th IOTF consists of regular soldiers and officers, tri-service and all arms, who are trained to use unconventional equipment, processes and techniques. So unconventional equipment, you see the way they put equipment at first? If they had said unconventional techniques, that would have sounded a hell of a lot different. That would have sounded a lot more sinister. And that's exactly the same thing. It's still it says techniques. They just swapped them round to do this because these are the guys. This is the type of psychological warfare that they are the professionals at. They know exactly what they're doing. Techniques, processes, and equipment. If they'd said it that way, it would have sounded a hell of a lot more sinister. So remember that. I'm going to read that again just to put it into perspective for you. The 5th Information Operation Task Force consists of regular soldiers, traitors, and officers, traitors, tri-service traitors, and all arms traitors who are trained to use unconventional techniques to have targeted effects on the UK's public. That's exactly what that should say. That's exactly what they have been doing. That's what Big Brother is saying that they got caught doing. And I did read through the paper which explained, if you go on Ministry of Truth, go through this, and I think I think it's here. Click the full report. Yeah, if you click that, it comes up and it's like a PDF and it downloads and you can have a little read through it. I've read through quite a bit of it. I think I've read it before because when I was reading it, I remembered bits. 101 Information Operations Task Force. 101, what a strange thing. Kind of like IOI off Ready Player One. You ever seen Ready Player One, the film? They're called IOIs, or are they 101s? I'm not too sure. That's a strange name. 101 Information Operation Task Force. A hybrid, always a bad word, a hybrid specialist unit providing standoff capabilities and delivering operations in counterjunction with, working with them, or sovereign operations delivered solely at standoff as part of the Information Operation Task Force. 201 Company Koi is a specialist hybrid subunit comprised blah blah blah. Data information activities trained to a high level in web-based communication security and analysis. With language skills and cultural expertise, the COI comprise regular reserves and specialists. So cultural expertise. That means they're the ones who start the race hate. I would say these sorts of units are the ones behind that guy, that young lad who's running around London now. I think he's 18. I don't think he is that young. Called Mizzy. Now, for those of you who don't know, in England, there's a guy running around on Twitter called Mizzy. And in fact, let me go on Twitter very quickly and let me just try and see if I have bookmarked anything to do with this little muppet. There he is. There he is. So his name's Mizzy, and he seems to be just running around the UK causing murder. He's already been arrested multiple times, but he keeps being allowed out. Now, why does he keep getting allowed out? Because he is fed. He's what it is he will have been just a normal, regular nobody on social media. The 77th brigade, these will have gone to TikTok, communicated with TikTok, and said, "Hi, we want you to blow this guy up. We want him to go viral. We want him to go viral." He goes viral, doing all these stupid daft things, which there are lots and lots of videos out there of kids doing these daft things. But they got him to go viral. He goes viral. They go and pick him up. They take him in and they say, "Right, listen, you're going to be going around." He's already an actor, so he's probably been pre-selected. He's probably been vetted and everything by these people, by the 77th brigade and the 201 and IOIs and 101s and all these numbers they give themselves. So they've gone out. They've selected this lad. They've said to him, "We want you to go out and we want you to cause trouble, as much trouble as you can." And then when he went on the ITV, I'm pretty sure he said to Piers Morgan that there's not enough police. Now that is a red flag. He is fed. He is MI6 opera. He's not an agent. This is what the thing is. When you say these things, people think that they're agents. They're not agents. They're just stupid little pawns. That's what they are. The little chessboard pawns that they just use, and they're just thrown out there. And now he's got all these other youths running around wanting to do the exact same thing. And we're going to see more and more of that. Which is exactly what these want. So then they can bring in more of this. It's problem, reaction, solution. Communication and planning. Narrative assessment. What we've just been talking about. Industry standard broadcast, print and social media knowledge. Artist and graphic design specialists. Photography, marketing and communication, journalism and writing, media. See how much, look at the resources that they have, and they'll have the best. They won't just, when they talk about these won't be assets that they have. The people who go and work for, let me just get my bookmarks back up. Oh, I didn't bookmark that thing, did I? Oh, did I? What was it now? Oh, if I click back, maybe it'll go. Here we go. So, this sort of stuff, when they say they have this, they have that, they have this, they probably do have big, massive units where they have all this stuff available to them. But they already have all this stuff available to them. Yeah, in the BBC. Working for the BBC. BBC is them. They are that. They are the same. It's all one big giant octopus, just different tentacles, and they work alongside each other. They help each other. They digitalize. They communicate. They assimilate. And I don't. There's not much of a background with but I'm gonna just mention it very quickly now before we jump onto the game. So we've gone over the 77th brigade, Ministry of Truth, counter thingy. Go and follow the Ministry of Truth as well. They're on Twitter. They're on other things. The Grey Zone, they're another good one as well. People say that they're Russia affiliated. Maybe. I don't know. But the idea is that you, as a person, have the right to go and follow any of these people that you want and make up your own mind as you go. Are you going to be lied to along the way? Yeah. But one lie can tell you 100 truths. One lie can tell you 100 truths. So as soon as people start banning lies, or banning even the truth, all of it together, any sort of control on speech or information is bad, and they've been controlling information for. My personal belief is that they've been controlling the information for thousands of years. And now that we've got the internet, now that we've got a massive the biggest library, bigger than Alexandria's library, in the palm of our hands, it's extremely dangerous weapon, and it's extremely dangerous to them, but can also be extremely dangerous to us if we allow it to be centralized. So the grey zone. Little is known about the history of Mariana Spring, the BBC first disinformation correspondent. So let me see, where's the date on this? So June 1st, not too long ago, because I do know that this is quite a new story. But her recording of churning out disinfo and her of her own in the evidence of British government objectives sends a red flag up over the BBC's new Verify project. So it's called BBC Verify. I'm guessing this Mariana Spring is the thing. I think I have watched the trailer, but we're going to have a little look at it now. Let's see, where is this? Hope the trailer's here on this website. There we go.
Our team of investigative
Let me just pause it. Let me hide it up. Desktop. Hide that up. I have to turn my mic down. It's quite sensitive.
Our team of investigative journalists here at the BBC. We are also a new brand, and we are a physical location above the newsroom in London. And the point of the team, as you said, is to verify video, to fact check, to counter disinformation, and to analyse really complex stories so we can get to the truth of what's going on. Why does this matter? Well, mistruths can cause really serious harm to society and to the people in them. And so we want to show you our workings and really help you understand how we get to the bottom of what's happening. And I'm going to give you a bit of a flavour of the kind of work that the team are doing. So we're able to look at maps to geolocate specific situations, stuff that's going on. This is just a map of central London where we are now. And this is New Broadcasting House, where I'm speaking to you from. And it's not so important perhaps for the centre of London, but it is when we're analysing war zones or what's happening in hard to reach places. And there's a story on the BBC website today. It's looking at Russian fortifications on the front lines in Ukraine, and you can read more about it there. And there are other ways that we also are able to interrogate what's going on, including on social media. I have some undercover accounts that I've set up for the BBC's Americast podcast, and we use these kinds of undercover accounts, and these are the characters that the accounts belong to be able to really understand polarisation online and how what's happening on our social media feeds and what we're being recommended.
So if I'm not, I mean, I have watched this, but I was just thinking then, oh bloody hell, I'm doing. But I was just thinking then, so these are fake accounts they're going to be using to, I mean, they are like, it's almost like they're openly admitting that they're now engaging in psyops. I suppose if they're just monitoring, that's what they always say, we're just monitoring this, we're just monitoring that. No. I mean, if they're openly admitting, look, we can get people on social media with fake accounts and we're watching exactly what people are saying and what people are doing, and we're the BBC and we're doing it openly. Imagine what the 77th brigade is doing. Imagine what the 5th IOTF or whatever it is they're doing. They're probably pushing a lot of this stuff. They're probably encouraging a lot of the youths to go out there and do these stupid things. But let's read on a little bit more. We've only got a couple of minutes left. On the last screen, she dubbed a crude diagram linking local communities and far right. Oh, okay, so we didn't watch that. Let's watch that there quick.
Did and pushed to us can affect all of us, and they don't offer us a totally exhaustive insight into what's going on, but they can help us understand just how social media works. And then there's also investigating other mistruths and the real world harm they can cause. At the moment, I'm investigating the UK's conspiracy theory movement. I'm trying to understand more about how it's evolved and intensified since the pandemic here in the UK. I'm looking at the alternative media that finds itself at the heart of this movement, and a conspiracy theory newspaper that's a part of that as well. I'm looking at the way that alternative media is funded, I'm looking at its impact on local communities. I'm looking at its connections with far-right figures and also its foreign links. That's for a podcast series.
Oh, I see where this is going. And it's so obvious. That's all credibility gone. Instantly, all her credibility has gone. And what these journalists don't understand is that soon the legacy media will collapse. There will be no legacy media. Everyone's just seen the BBC get absolutely destroyed by Andrew Tate in that interview. Millions of people watched it. They can't do anything about it. And the same with this. People aren't stupid. As soon as you start saying far right, alternative media, conspiracy theories, it's just dog whistles. We know it's all rubbish, because alternative media is coming about because people like you, Mariana, are not doing their job. That's where it comes from. The funding is open source. I've bought t-shirts. I've donated money myself. There are people on YouTube. The people on YouTube are open about where their money comes from. They say, I'm selling books, I'm selling this. One of the main people I followed on YouTube, I bought four of his books, and one of them on a Kindle, so the digital version of it. I mean, they get funding, they get money, and they're making more money than you. They're making millions because people are bored of listening to the same rubbish all the time. You're saying conspiracy theory newspapers. Everything to these people is conspiracy theory when it's against the narrative. Everything about majority of the things, conspiracy theories about COVID-19 came true. So the whole idea, that whole term now, conspiracy theory, has lost so much credibility. It doesn't turn people away. If anything, it makes people want to watch more. I want to watch more of what she says now, in a sense, because I know that's the wrong information, that she's relaying to me the wrong information. And like I said, the one lie can tell me 100 truths. I know now that whenever I need to know where the objective of the global elite and the agenda is going, I just need to go and follow her and watch what she's saying, because she's exposed herself now, and she's not making any money. She's not going to make any money from it. She's just going to get thingy. And what I was getting at was, when legacy media dies, which it is doing, it is currently dying along with countries and the governments that are running it. These people, like this Marina Spring, will not be able to find any more work in media. When she goes for interviews for newspapers, for big giant companies, like look at things like Daily Wire. Is it Daily Wire? Let me just double check that. That one should be saying Daily Wire. If it's not, oops. 1 second. Yeah. So Daily Wire, I did get it right. Yeah. Just didn't want to say the wrong thing. So you look at Daily Wire. You look at Tim Pool and Tim Cast and all these things. These are alternative. This is alternative media. You look at InfoWars. Now I know, like, Alex Jones has been going for years, and he's probably had more money robbed from him from the banana republic that he lives in. But as of sheer like net worth and income and what he's achieved over the years, millions and millions of pounds, not just from donations and adverts and all these other things, but from crowdsourcing. That's where a lot of people are getting their money from, crowdsourcing. Because it's easy for me to donate £4, buy a little book, buy a little t-shirt, buy a sticker or something for my car. It's easy for me to just, because I'm getting something back for it as well. I'm getting a t-shirt, I'm getting stickers, I'm getting books I can read, I'm getting information, and they are giving me the main source of their product completely for free. They're giving me information, talking to me They don't just talk to you like what you've done. All you've done is got a bunch of tropes, a bunch of stupid little sayings, put them on a computer screen and drew arrows from one to the other. Where's the proof? Where's the evidence? When we're watching these other people on YouTube, they're coming up with the sources, they're coming up with the websites, they're reading through what they are saying themselves, they're getting up the proof, the evidence, the pictures, the videos of them saying what it is that some things that you call a conspiracy theory, like the Hunter Biden laptop. I can go away and go and watch Steve Bannon or someone like that, or Stephen Crowder, get up the information and go through the emails themselves on Rumble. I can watch them do it. And I can sit there and listen to them, and they'll laugh and they'll joke and they'll make stupid little jokes and everything along the way. But you've done nothing but got a bunch of words, put them on a fancy computer screen, and drew arrows to them. And I can't wait to see what you come up with in other episodes, because it's going to be laughable. Everything you do, everything the BBC does is laughable. And being from the UK, I can tell you, it's the BBC is not a joke anymore. It was for a long time. It's not even a joke anymore. It's boring to even mention it, to even moan about it. To moan about the BBC is boring now. People just don't care about it anymore. People don't watch it. People don't know why it still exists. People don't know why it still exists after the Jimmy Savile scandal. I mean, if you're talking about disinformation and it's coming from the BBC, remember one thing. Jimmy Savile, one of the biggest child trafficking, paedophile, disgusting, vile human beings that ever lived, died a free man because the BBC helped. So that will always be part of their name, and you'd be surprised at how the same people are still operating behind the scenes of the BBC and in the UK Parliament. But we're going to get into such a good documentary. I watched this years ago. I'm going to watch it on YouTube. It's part of a playlist I have called Political Significance. Lots of different stuff on here. I've got loads of different ones, but they're all long-winded. This one's 41 minutes long. I couldn't tell you. The real face of the European Union. Credence Films. I'm guessing this is not the official site 10 years after Philip Day made the reel. So Philip Day made the real face of the European Union, and it's all coming true. Okay, so this is just, I'm guessing this Credence Films is just the guy who uploads old videos. But, go and follow him if you want. I've got it on low settings, so it's not going to interfere with the game, I don't think. So, let me just put the game on. Let me put this down to a lower thing, like that, yeah. And then I'm gonna turn off the window screen altogether. Yeah. 38 minutes. So I'm gonna play this for about, I've got 41 minutes. I'll maybe play it for 20 minutes. Ideally, I'm trying to keep it under an hour so that these posts can. For some reason, Rumble doesn't let me put it in 1080p. So I'm just gonna put in. What I'll do is, I'll lower my microphone down. I will switch my microphone over. Better idea. Properties to my headset. That way. So let me switch. Yeah. Hello. That's a bit loud. Hello. Okie dokie. And then let me lower this one. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Yes. We are. Put it in performance mode. Sorry. Taking a while. Okay, just need to check the audios, that's all it is. I just don't want anything to blare through too loud, too low. Take it off performance mode, let's see what we're looking at here.
The whole enterprise is crazy, and it's an absolute scam which is going to cost you a great deal.
Okay, looking good. Performance
It's
mode.
rather like paying monkeys, because what happens is the civil servants draw up the list, and if it's vote number 58 and the piece of paper says vote yes, you vote yes, and if it's number 59 and it says vote no, you vote no. It is an absolute farce. It is a complete sham masquerading as democracy.
Hello.
You should not be mistaken. It's very, very strong forces are working towards this federal state.
Entering safe area.
This is the village of Goudhurst. It's been said that if Kent is the Garden of England,
Just grabbing a
then
nice
Goudhurst
drink
is the Garden of
before we
Kent.
get started.
The English way of life has gone on here for centuries. But is all that about to become a thing of the past? In 1996, chairman of the British Referendum Party, Sir James Goldsmith, circulated copies of a short film documentary to millions of households across the country. Frustrated by the lack of mainstream press coverage over what he saw as the dismantling of British sovereignty and independence by colluding politicians, Sir James's wake-up call to the people of Great Britain was stark and shocked many.
What you're about to hear will both surprise and outrage you. It's the true story of Europe. It's the story the politicians don't want you to hear, because it shows how they've deceived us and betrayed our nation. Only in 1994 did Chancellor Kohl's foreign policy spokesman, speaking on behalf of the ruling party of Europe's dominant nation, Germany, clearly reveal the true plan. The plan is to create a federal European superstate. Into it will be merged up to 25 ancient European nations, including our own. This new country, called Europe, will have one parliament, one government, one court of justice, one currency, one flag, and one anthem. That has been the plan all along. But those who favoured it knew the people of Europe would never accept it. They would never willingly surrender their freedoms to become just a province in a vast European superstate. So what did the politicians do? They conspired to keep the truth from the people.
So what is the truth behind the European Union? Is it, as our politicians keep telling us, Britain's best hope for the future? A chance to regain some of that lost prestige on the world stage by being at the centre of Europe? Today in Britain, all three major political parties miraculously appear to agree at least on one thing. They believe in the destruction of Great Britain as an independent nation. They believe an integrated Europe makes sense, that it is the modern, forward-thinking way to go, that it would prevent any chance of a third European war. Unfortunately, nothing could be further from the truth.
The need to unite Europe grew understandably out of the devastation left behind after two catastrophic world wars. Of all the empires, it was perhaps the Nazis who came closest to pulling off the military conquest and occupation of Europe in recent times. In June 1940, Hermann Goering, Reich Marshal of the German Luftwaffe, reviews final plans for Operation Sea Lion, the German invasion of Great Britain. He also discusses with Hitler a new plan to unite Europe, not just under the conquering hammer of Blitzkrieg, but through a lasting political and economic union, which the Nazis named Europäische Wirtschaftsgemeinschaft, or the European Economic Community. In 1942, a conference is held in Berlin to discuss this political and economic integration of Europe. Of all the nations targeted, Britain has proved the wild card because she alone has successfully resisted invasion. Rising to his feet at the conference, Nazi economist Professor Horst Jecht of Berlin University firmly declares that Britain is the greatest obstacle to Germany fulfilling her historic aim of dominating Europe.
Winston Churchill also believed Britain had an incompatible destiny with that of the continent. Referring to the United Kingdom's reliance on her overseas trade, Churchill stated, "If Britain must choose between Europe and the open sea, we will choose the sea." Both Churchill and Jecht were independently remarking on the same phenomenon Napoleon had noticed 150 years before. That Great Britain was a global trading power, and the nations of Europe weren't.
According to the Nazis, Great Britain's awesome maritime capability was beggaring Europe because it was drawing trade away from the continent. If Britain could be conquered militarily or economically, broken up once and for all as a significant economic and political entity, the spoils of all her trade and wealth would go to whoever ran the new European empire. Few in Berlin were in any doubt about who would do the running. But the tide of war turned against Germany. In 1944, a meeting was held at the Hotel Rotas House in Strasbourg between officials of the Nazi government and German industrialists. The theme of the meeting was, how will Germany dominate the peace when she loses the war?
Following the end of World War II, the rebuilding of Europe, and Germany in particular, became a pressing necessity and was largely funded under the Marshall Plan by the United States. Both Washington and London saw the rapid stabilization of the continent after the war as essential in order to prevent any incursion into Western Europe by the new enemy to be feared, the Soviet Union.
Winston Churchill agreed that some form of commonwealth of nations in Europe was desirable for establishing stability and a lasting peace. But he never envisioned Britain as being part of any future United States of Europe.
Winston Churchill's view of Great Britain's relationship with Europe after the Second World War is summarized with these words of his: "That we have our own dream and our own task. We are with Europe, but not of it. We are linked, but not comprised. We are interested and associated, but not absorbed."
The Allied answer to military stability in Europe was to be the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, which came into existence in 1949 as a permanent defense alliance for Europe. The European Union officially began life as the European Coal and Steel Community in 1951, a modest industrial cooperation between France, Germany, Italy, Belgium, Luxembourg and Holland. 6 years later, in 1957, the Treaty of Rome was signed by the 6 participating coal and steel community nations. Declaring its goal as the ever closer union of the peoples of Europe, the Treaty of Rome went far beyond launching just a common market. It established the fledgling apparatus for an idealistic new superpower. This new entity was given an existing and unsettlingly familiar name: the European Economic Community. In 1963, Charles de Gaulle and Konrad Adenauer signed the Treaty of Elysee, signifying the symbolic burying of the hatchet between France and Germany. This was the start of a dynamic new dual leadership role in Europe for the two countries. De Gaulle later resigned, and within a year was dead. Britain was invited to submit yet another application to join the EEC. This time, Edward Heath, now as Britain's Conservative Prime Minister, signed the Treaty of Rome and took Britain into the common market on New Year's Day, 1973. Responding to deep concerns within his own country that joining the EEC would compromise Britain's national sovereignty and independence, Heath sought to reassure the British people in a government white paper. He wrote, "There is no question of Britain losing essential national sovereignty." The master plan, of course, was well known to Edward Heath, Lord Hailsham and their colleagues in Brussels. It was the eventual creation of a new European superstate out of 25 existing nations in Europe and Scandinavia, and Britain was going to be part of it. From 1973 onwards, the slow but consistent transfer of power from Westminster to Brussels through successive treaties our own politicians signed became known as the acquis communautaire. It was nicknamed the ratchet, for once powers had been given to Brussels by the member state, they could never be returned.
Initially, I thought, like everybody else, that we had joined a common market, and what would be nicer and more friendly and sensible and economically wise to do. But since then, in 1975, when we had the vote to remain in that, so we were told, it's become one or two things further than just a common market. It then became, a few years later, a European economic community, then a European community. It's now the European Union, with all sorts of controls and restrictions, regulations, and we're fast approaching, via this new constitution, something that the French have already named potentially a United States of Europe. And I'm not at all sure that that's what I and many others voted to join back in 1975.
Say in 75 we signed up for a so-called trade agreement, and it's the people who've let the governments, successive governments, gradually vote away our democratic rights. This government has no right to sign us up to the Constitution without the will of the people, but we need the will of the people to stop it. It's no use coming down in 5 years' time, we've signed up to it, we can't get out of it, and the people say, well, we don't want it. It's up to the people of the day to say no.
This is the Strasbourg Parliament. It was built in 1999 at a cost of £300 million. It is open for only 4 days every month. What happens at the end of that 4 days is we load our offices into tin boxes, and then lorries arrive downstairs and drive the whole lot nearly 300 miles up to Brussels, where the boxes are unpacked for the next 3 weeks when we're supposed to be there, and then it's all brought back again. This whole process of shifting the administration and the staff from one home to another is costing the European taxpayer over 100 million euros a year.
It is the biggest scam in human history. We're not talking about billions of pounds, we're talking about trillions of pounds. Why a country which has been independent for 900 or more years would ever wish to involve itself in such political chicanery and nonsense as something which defies anyone who is sane. And only now we got just about 14 or 15 months before they rivet on us a pan-European constitution which would be superior to our own splendid constitution, one which is the pride of the world and pioneered the way for sensible living. And here we are giving it all away.
The political aim is to develop the framework for a real European Union constitution, and in my opinion this means building up a European federal state.
In black and white, the draft constitution wording confirms Brussels will exercise competence and primacy over member states' own laws. For the British, this will mean being stripped of any remaining independence, losing control over our foreign policy and armed forces, the handing over of our legal system and law enforcement to the European Union, the scrapping of the pound sterling to be replaced by the euro, the handing over of our remaining currency and gold reserves to the European Central Bank, and
and the total regulation of British domestic and international trade by the European Union. Coincidentally or otherwise, the European goal of dominating Britain, unfinished business going back centuries, will have been accomplished. Most have already noticed that the job of running Britain is increasingly being carried out in Brussels, not by British politicians, but by unaccountable foreign committees most in this country have never even heard of, let alone voted into power. These unelected, inscrutable forums dictate what citizens across the Eurozone can and can't do, down to the last detail. Henceforth, Britain is to be ruled from the new Europe, by the new Europe, and for the benefit of the new Europe. The powers driving this new superstate have always been, indeed as they are today, France and Germany. Lindsay Jenkins worked as a senior civil servant in the British Ministry of Defence for almost 10 years and spent a further 10 working for British and American investment banks in the City of London. She is the author of 2 books exposing the origins of European federalism and the emergence of the European Union.
Today, over 80%, that is 80%, of everything that goes through the House of Commons and the House of Lords merely rubber stamps Brussels. And there is an awful lot of it. We have recently celebrated, if that is the right word, our 40,000th directive from Brussels. And having attacked central government, now Brussels is attacking our local government structure. So we have lost, just to recap, in the following areas. We have lost 100% of our control, or near enough, over the environment, the British scenery, countryside, everything that comprises environment, including health and safety regulations, absolutely everything. We have lost near enough 100% control over our fishing. We have lost 100% control over our farming. And we have lost 100% control over our trade policy. And that last is of particular significance when you consider that Britain is the 4th largest economy in the world, and we do more trade per head of population than any other country in the world by far.
For many in this country, the first experience they have had with the European Union, apart from VAT, came when they tried to protest new legislation introduced to limit the amount and availability of vitamins, herbs and alternative remedies people will be able to purchase and use in the future.
The UK has always enjoyed a very open market. Products have been allowed on the market if they're safe, period. There's not been any restrictions on the dosage or the type of product so long as it's safe and poses no risk to public health. The European Directive on Food Supplements changes that completely. And we're going to lose over 300 different nutrient forms. On top of that, there's going to be dosage restrictions. So the 1,000 milligram vitamin C tablet that we've been selling for 40, 50 years, that also will become illegal. So the safe and effective products that we've been used to in this country for decades are going to be illegal for no other reason than Europe wants to harmonise legislation. We are one of 3 countries with an open market in food supplements. We're going to lose our products by the 1st of August 2005.
I'm Dr. Paul Lehman. I work in a clinic using natural therapies to treat people, and I regard any restriction of vitamin and mineral production and availability as being very serious and can damage people. We use huge numbers of supplements for our patients that we feel very definitely need it, and they respond very well with them.
Most people in Britain today believe that the European Parliament works in a similar way to Westminster.
So many thousands of British citizens have written to their MPs and MEPs protesting these and other directives. But do MEPs actually have the power to change the food supplements and herbal directives, or indeed anything?
So what are MEPs for? Well, I'll tell you. MEPs are here to vote, and to vote often and to vote regularly. Sometimes we vote up to 450 times in the space of 80 minutes. Now, I have to confess, hands up, I don't know what's going on half the time. I haven't even read all of the documents, so massive are they. Now, it could be that my fellow MEPs down there are all Albert Einsteins and all absolutely understand what's going on. But I suspect that's not the case. In fact, it's rather like paying monkeys, because what happens is the civil servants draw up the list, and if it's vote number 58 and the piece of paper says vote yes, you vote yes, and if it's number 59 and it says vote no, you vote no. It is an absolute farce. It is a complete sham masquerading as democracy. In 15 minutes' time, we have to go down to the European Parliament and to fulfil our function as members of the European Parliament, which means we have to vote. So what we're about to do now is, with our assistants, who've done a massive amount of reading and work behind the scenes, they are effectively going to tell us what to do. I mean, look how many votes there are. What have we got?
Yeah.
So there's about, in fact, now look at that. This is a classic example of EU voting. There we have 40 individual different amendments that we're expected to vote for en bloc. Now, I defy any man or woman down in that chamber to understand all those 40 amendments and make a balanced decision. It's just impossible.
Laws of the European Union are drafted not by the Euro Parliament, but by the EU Commission, one of three powerful forums in which the true might of the Union resides. Members of these forums are not elected to their positions, nor, we are told, will they ever be.
When cornered, politicians and public servants routinely tell the British that the EU is just a trading partnership. Yet, underneath the surface, a different picture has emerged. In 2001, a market trader was convicted for selling a pound of bananas weighed using British imperial measures instead of grams and kilos. British District Judge Morgan, in passing judgment upon the hapless metric martyr, stated, "We are now living under a new legal order. The 1972 European Communities Act was a one-off, not an ordinary treaty, but a new way of life. These are new constitutional powers. The British Parliament surrendered its sovereignty in 1972. European laws have overriding force with priority over our British laws. The articles on the supremacy of the British Parliament are now only of historical perspective. They are non-binding." We asked constitutional expert John Bingley whether our politicians were entitled to abandon the rule of law by handing over the powers of British governments to a foreign power.
The answer is simple: no. We have much written constitution which is not really fully appreciated in this country. And these documents, the Bill of Rights and Declaration of Rights, along with Magna Carta and many other legal instruments, make it quite plain that allegiance is owed to the Queen, and that allegiance is returned by her through the contract of her coronation oath to the people. And that is not something which may be broken, and our politicians are not entitled to break their oaths of office.
It follows, therefore, that no government, with or without a popular mandate, may transfer sovereignty on a temporary or permanent basis to a foreign power that owes no allegiance to the British Crown and is unaccountable to the British people.
The new European justice system currently being introduced into the UK is known as Corpus Juris, literally body of law. Corpus Juris is designed completely and permanently to overhaul the British justice system and will include the following:
the scrapping of trial by jury. Henceforth you will face a state-appointed judge who will pronounce you guilty or not guilty. The scrapping of habeas corpus. You are liable to summary arrest without charge. Under Corpus Juris, you can be detained without charge or any evidence being presented against you for up to 9 months, the scrapping of innocent until proven guilty. Henceforth, a citizen must prove his innocence against the combined machinery of the state. The scrapping of double jeopardy, or not being tried for the same offence twice. Under EU sanction, Jack Straw, while Home Secretary, gave prosecutors leave to appeal not guilty verdicts if desired. Technically, this could be done repeatedly until the required conviction is secured. The scrapping of non-disclosure. Henceforth, under corpus juris, any previous convictions you have will be made available to the court before your trial begins. There is no presumption of innocence.
The French system, or the continental system normally, the droit administratif, places everything, the subjects of the foreign or continental countries, have no rights at all. An Englishman has full liberty, except under the due restriction of law. Under the droit administratif, you have no rights except those that are allowed to you by the state. This fundamental difference is very important because it's now leading, with the takeover of the EU situation, we are now leading to a state whereby we too will come under the droit administratif. And this will stop us having a right to trial by jury. And that in itself is the back door to a dictatorial arrangement.
The officials themselves, we learn, and we only learn it step by step, have total immunity from everything. That is, from the criminal law throughout the member states. They seem to have extraordinary powers, but as I say, nobody knows quite what. Then, gradually, incrementally, they acquire extra powers. They acquire powers to look at terrorism. What they are precisely, we're not quite sure. They also have powers to look at fraud. What they are, we're not quite sure.
For centuries, it has been the British citizen's most basic right to vote in 100% of the members of Parliament who govern their country, or alternatively vote them all out and sack them if they don't perform.
For instance, the basic principle that one Westminster Parliament can always change what the past Parliament did. That's the core of democracy, that you can elect a new Parliament and then you can have a new law. This core doesn't exist in the EU, and it doesn't exist with the constitution we are building now.
As more and more EU-sanctioned taxation hits the British taxpayer, from local council tax increases to higher national insurance levies, how many even appreciate the true price of what European Union membership has actually cost Britain?
People don't realise that the cost to Britain is £1.3 million per hour, every day, every year. And the way that figure will go is upwards, not downwards.
We every year give them a nice big fat Christmas cake, costing billions of pounds, and they decide how many crumbs they're going to give us back. They don't flannel me, but unfortunately are flanneling a lot of people in this country.
The Europeans have far higher levels of taxation. There'll be VAT, can you believe it, on food. There'll be VAT on house purchase. There'll be VAT on public transport. There'll be VAT on children's clothing. There'll be VAT on funerals. There's no limit to the greed of the bureaucrat.
And the other point, of course, is the sheer financial point, that this place is thick with institutional corruption. You could now buy a cheap airline ticket to come to Strasbourg for about £45 return. When you get here, you're reimbursed nearly £800 for the cost of that flight. Now, this has been going on for the last 20 years, and of course what's happened is that our members of the European Parliament simply haven't been talking about it. The system is fraudulent, it's rotten to the core.
The EU's pilfering of airline expenses and the extravagant waste of taxpayers' money on schmoozing and boozing MEPs into compliance is of course serious enough. But there's a lot more. There's the endemic corruption that has existed at the heart of the Union from the outset.
The whole thing is corrupt to the core. The scale of the corruption, the figure given in the House of Lords Committee, was that it was £6,000 million worth of corruption in a single year. Their accounts haven't been signed off for the last 8 years. Why would anyone wish to be governed by something which is utterly corrupt? It is beyond belief.
And I think, quite honestly, all these MEPs in Brussels, we are going to have an awful job trying to break this down simply because they're on a cushy little number. And that has always been the problem with not only the MEPs, but our own government. They're too busy feathering their own nest.
In 1998, a man called Paul van Buitenen, who worked in the European Commission, decided that fraud, waste, mismanagement, corruption and nepotism had become so bad that no longer could he hold his peace, and he went public and became the first whistleblower. It turned out that, in fact, all of his claims were right, and the entire European Commission were forced to resign in disgrace. The president of that commission, Jacques Santer, is now here as a member of the European Parliament for Luxembourg. And Commissioner Kinnock, who was one of the 20 that had to resign, is now a vice president of the European Union and has been put in charge of sorting out fraud. Well, how well has he done? Well, there's now another whistleblower. Her name's Marta Andreasen. She went to Commissioner Kinnock. She said, look, I'm sorry, Commissioner Kinnock, but I cannot sign off these accounts. You're using a cash-based system. You're not using double-entry bookkeeping, which incidentally was invented in the late 14th century. She said, I cannot sign off these accounts as being a true and accurate record of the EU's finances, and for her trouble, she's been suspended pending an investigation. Everybody talks about reforming fraud within the European Union. I think this whole system is so rotten that it's now unreformable.
It means that you will be ruled for the first time by people you cannot sack. Why would anyone want to do that voluntarily? It's the politicians of all three major parties who are all hell-bent on ever closer union. Ever closer union, in fact, means ever closer strangulation.
Being part of the European Union will mean Britain will permanently lose control over her armed forces and foreign policy. The new European army, so enthusiastically pushed by France and Germany, in effect threatens NATO, the organisation that has kept peace in Europe for the past 50 years.
They can use our armed forces, the Crown forces, the Army, the Navy and the Air Force in the European Rapid Reaction Force. And imagine our forces being under the command of some perhaps French or German general.
And then there's the euro. Joining it will be irreversible, according to Hans Tietmeyer, former president of the German Bundesbank. Monetary union is a path of no return, he states. No subsequent revision or withdrawal of any kind is either legally or politically provided for.
Britain's economy traditionally tracks that of the United States because of our heavy trading on the dollar. So what would be the effect of joining the euro and tying Britain's economy into this one-size-fits-all arrangement with the other nations of the EU?
Brussels wanted to know too, which is why in October 1990 Britain joined something called the European Exchange Rate Mechanism, a dress rehearsal for the euro and monetary union, which effectively locked the British pound into other EU currencies. 23 months of chaos followed. British business suffered its worst recession in 60 years. 100,000 UK businesses went to the wall. Unemployment doubled from 1.5 to 3 million. more bankruptcies were filed than in any previous 2-year period ever. Repossessions of property increased 7-fold. By 1993, over 500,000 of us were at least 3 months in arrears on our mortgages. Britain lost estimated reserves of 68 billion sterling.
And as someone once put it, you may be very friendly with your neighbours, but would you actually hand over complete control of your bank account to your friendly neighbours? Quite probably not. And that's precisely what we would be doing if we joined the euro.
And if you're in Ireland or in Latvia, the euro is going to be great because you're having everything paid for. Unfortunately, it's by us. And I don't think we can afford or sustain that level of payment for that amount of time. If we joined the euro and the same thing happened to our economy as happened to Germany, we could all find ourselves struggling to pay our mortgages.
There's been a great debate going on for the last 5 years about the supposed benefits of the single currency. We're told that business needs it, and we're told above all that it's good for jobs. Well, how's it working out 3 years down the road? Well, in Germany, just 2 miles across the border, there are now 4.6 million people unemployed. They are experiencing exactly what we experienced during ERM back in the early 1990s. They cannot set their own interest rates to set their own economy. And the great risk of joining the euro is that you can finish up totally out of sync with the rest of the European economy, and there's nothing that your democratically elected government can do to alter it.
There exists on the continent a massive unfunded pension debt run up by German, French and Italian politicians, and it's been estimated at £1,300 billion. And that would be something which we, the British people, would be expected to contribute.
But how could Britain ever free herself from the European Union through military action if all her armed forces were under EU command? And in the unlikely event that she did regain her independence, how could Britain relaunch her own currency if she had handed all her gold and currency reserves over to the European Central Bank?
And the question that you can ask our ministers is, how is it that they have sworn oaths of office that say that they will defend all jurisdictions and authorities belonging to Her Majesty against all foreign powers, and then they give away those powers of governance, or are purporting to give away those powers of governance, to those that owe no allegiance to this crown?
Well, today the European Parliament has voted on the admission of 10 new member states. I have to tell you that I was one of only 22 members of a House out of 626 that voted for those countries not to join. I did so not just because it would save the British taxpayer a great deal of money if they didn't join. I did it for their sakes because most of these countries have just left a system of centralised, undemocratic communist government based in Soviet Russia, and I fear they're about to re-enter a very similar system. But I must say this to you, that not everything about this European project is bad news, because the really good news is there's something we can do about it. If we want to, and all we need is the political will, a British Parliament at any moment in time can vote for us to have an amicable divorce from this corrupt club. We can then renegotiate a genuine free trade agreement, which is what we thought we'd signed up to in the first place. And even here, commissioners like Kinnock and Patton and luminaries such as Giscard d'Estaing say that if Britain doesn't want to be part of this full political union at which they're attempting, we can, if we want, get out of it and renegotiate a free trade deal. We don't need to be in the EU to trade with the EU. That idea is anachronistic and dates back to the 1950s and 60s. So it really is up to us. But we have to do something about it. We have to vote for people who will not allow this continual surrender of our sovereignty to continue.
If we don't do something about it in the next couple of years, it's goodbye democracy and everything which we've fought for centuries. Time is running out.
I think Britain joining the EU contradicts the British Constitution and the common law. The Magna Carta, the Declaration of Rights and the Bill of Rights and the monarchy are undermined, and I see the danger of British people losing their rights and liberties by joining the EU.
A police force with diplomatic immunity is an affront to democracy, it is highly dangerous, and basically the politicians of the member nations of the EU have given away the rights and the civil liberties of their citizens.
It follows, therefore, that no government, with or without a popular mandate, may transfer sovereignty on a temporary or permanent basis to a foreign power that owes no allegiance to the British Crown and is unaccountable to the British people.
So I say, if you want to turn your democracy into a European federation without the British having any definite say on your own laws, then you make a historical mistake.
The most compelling warnings to the West about radical Islam, those would come from someone who grew up in the world of Islam. Today on Uncommon Knowledge, Ayan Hirsi Ali. Uncommon Knowledge, now.